is the time. Anger over the sacking of 800 P&O workers continue. Reports that the agency staff who are set to replace them could be as paid as little as £1.81 an hour. Well, while the service between Dublin and Liverpool has resumed, others continue to be suspended, and we don't know for sure when they'll restart. Let's speak to Shane Brennan, who's Chief Executive of the Cold Chain Federation. Shane, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And maybe you should just tell us what the Cold Chain Federation is and who you represent.
So we're the trade organisation that represents businesses that store and move frozen and chilled food around the UK and in and out of the UK as well.
And so that means that things need to be moved relatively quickly.
Absolutely, particularly our fresh produce needs to be ordered and delivered within 1 to 2 days, and that obviously creates significant challenges when there are interruptions like ferries grinding to a halt.
So what has been the overall impact of these suspended routes on the supply chains?
So at the moment, things are pretty calm and pretty in order. I mean, there are often times when ferries will stop running for a day or two, normally related to weather, and businesses are able to put in contingencies to route via other channels. The biggest problem, though, is getting across the Irish Sea from Scotland and Northern Ireland and from Liverpool and other ports, and that has been particularly stressed, and we believe that there's more capacity coming onto the line from other services today, and that will hopefully help to relieve some of the pressure.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, some routes obviously from Britain will have more competition, as it were, so that you'll have more choice, others less so.
Yeah, I mean, people tend to think about Dover-Calais, and Dover-Calais is by far the critical artery between the UK and the European Union, and there is more capacity on that route, the Eurotunnel, for example. But if you're talking about the route out of Kenryan into Larne in Northern Ireland, which is very important to Northern Irish farmers, but also very important to supermarkets servicing Northern Ireland, that has been struggling because it's very P&O reliant. And also the other problem is that going across the Irish Sea, you used to be able to have more choice because you could go down to the south, into Dublin, for example. But you can't do that now very easily because of the Brexit rule changes, which mean you have to basically pick a route and have the paperwork in place to go via the route you've chosen, rather than being able to switch between the two. So
what is this actually meaning in practice then? Are things going to waste, for instance?
No, we're nowhere near that kind of problem. You know, let's be clear, we had 3 years of quite significant disruption in our supply chains, and we've got very good at dealing with these sorts of problems. And this is by no means as big a problem as the things we had around the no-deal brinkmanship and the COVID problems we've had. So I wouldn't want to be concerned at this stage. The problem will be if this dispute carries on for weeks. If it carries on for weeks, at that point we'll start to see businesses having to rethink what they're sending and how they're sending it, because there will be that capacity problem.
And do you think businesses might be making a conscious choice about which operator they actually want to go with? There's been a huge backlash against the way P&O has handled all of this. May some of your members decide actually they don't want to give them their business?
I mean, I would. If it was me, I think that these things matter, how you treat your employees. I think they will make that choice if they can, and I think that therefore we hope that the other capacity will be available. But let's hope P&O and its employees come to some kind of reasonable settlement, because that's what we'd all hope, ideally.
Well, I presume without that reasonable settlement, as you call it, there's the danger this could go on for quite some time if they're having to retrain new staff, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a ferry operator and expert, but the idea of replacing an entire staffing cohort doesn't feel like a very easy thing to do, particularly in the conditions that it's been done. So I think we have to assume that capacity will be strained for some time. But like I say, we are used to there being issues of capacity, and crucially, there are alternatives available, particularly Dover-Calais and increasingly now on the Scottish and Northern Ireland routes. So I think that there's no reason for consumers to be concerned. This is the sort of thing supply chain will find a way of coping with.
And you mentioned the difficulties posed by Brexit in terms of coming up with quick alternatives here if you want to go via Dublin, for instance. How much of that is still an issue for your members?
It's a massive issue. That remains a significant headache to operate, how to work out how to get goods across the Irish Sea particularly out of the UK into Northern Ireland, but also the routes into Southern Ireland have more or less ceased for lots of fresh food because the rules are so much more stringent than they were, and businesses just can't make that work financially.
Are you getting any signs that actually that might be relieved at any point? Because there was talk of Liz Truss renegotiating some of this.
We'll have to see where we are after the Northern Ireland elections, I would say. I think things are on a bit of a holding pattern. But let's be hopeful that, common sense will win out, because there are ways to make these rules less burdensome on business and make supply chains more easy to operate. But we are in the hands of the politicians seeing some common sense.
Thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. Shane Brennan, who's Chief Executive of the Cold Chain Federation.